chance to speak, in a clear fashion. So yeah, having said that, and again, feel free to raise questions in the chat as well. We have student officers as well as myself that will be looking at the chat, and feel free to participate there as well as through. I'm glad you remember the recording. I completely.
Yeah, I remember. I got you. So I just put in the text for those who weren't able to listen to the topic. It's the sense of self and others. And there is like a noise. I think it comes from. I cannot pronounce your number properly, so I'm so sorry. Tuan. Thank you
Well,
so
Thank you.
much.
yeah, thank you. So this idea of, because we were talking about this a little bit yesterday actually. You and I, Fernando and Orlando, and Marcus, and yeah, basically this idea, of shared meaning. So part of your topic was that it was tough for us to articulate exactly what it is that you're getting at, and it kind of
Yes.
like so. I mean, help me clarify. Is it the question of how we communicate meaningful moments to other people when that which is meaningful seems to hold perhaps its truest meaning to us on a very personal, individual level. So how is it possible to communicate the most meaningful experiences with people who, again, aren't you and maybe don't necessarily see it that way? Or are there, certain ways that we can help facilitate that kind of communication and sharing that kind of bond?
Yes. I'm also very intrigued by this topic because um, we may experience, well, we definitely experience the same moment very differently, and we have different feelings towards them, and we have different reactions towards them. And what it may seem the same situation, it is perceived very differently. And it also shows on the way we talk about it and we react later on despite of who you are. You might be even a twin with different similar experiences, and you still will receive it differently. And all these emotions or these thoughts are keep creating somebody like unique that they still has these uh, connections with somebody in a way that is not tangible. We were talking about like how like sometimes even just a smell can remember you of your connection with somebody in the past, that it defines how you will react later. Whether you will be maybe afraid of the smell because it was somebody who hurt you too much, or it will be some feeling that will nurture you for like hours because it reminds you of how it felt your mother like hugging you whenever you were a kid in very specific moments. And all these experiences keep developing who you are. And okay, so I will
I guess I'll
continue on.
say something
Mhm.
here. I don't know. When it comes to self and others, I mean, I think there's two school of thoughts primarily in philosophy. Maybe not primarily, but like idea of essentialism and I guess existentialism, which is saying like one versus the other is like, is there such a thing as our true selves, or are we just creatures that are always changing? And that's something that I kind of question myself all the time. You know, because I think as early as we come in this world, we're kind of just like this mold. We're molded in a sense, or rather, we're just a cylinder. And we come in, and with every single interaction we have with others, we're essentially molded to become different and more dynamic, I guess, in a sense. And we understand others, and we understand social settings. And so, with that being the case, it's like if that was to go missing, if there was, would you still be you on your own? Are you still a person that exists? Are you still a thing? Are you, what are you? That's kind of how I see this one. Uh, I
Yeah,
see Aya wants to say something.
yeah,
So it's really interesting that um pretty much what you were just saying, Orlando. My brother and I were discussing literally just before this meeting started. Um, this is a build up, so bear with me. But we were talking about the word dystopia or dystopian societies, and my brother had mentioned that there is no way to have the word is redundant because we can never reach dystopian societies or dystopia because it is always in the future. And I pretty much came across the concept of, you know, there are words out there that exist that we can never define their meaning of because they exist in a place that we cannot have. So the word tomorrow or future, you can never be in the future. You can never experience tomorrow because you're always living in the present. So we were bouncing ideas off of each other, and I said, so what of the concept of self? Because he and I are studying this, or just passed for our unit for philosophy, the concept of self. And I was like, so what if we applied this to the concept of self? If we can't experience tomorrow, can we even say that there even is a tomorrow? And ourself, we could have gone to sleep and woken up and been a completely different person and never even known it, because our concept of self is only we can identify who we are as ourselves. No one else can identify who we are. They can say that we are a certain person, but only we know in our hearts and our consciousness that we are who we are. So somebody can say, "Oh, well, you're Heather Gray. Your favorite color is purple, and you woke up this morning, you loathe the color purple, and you identify as the person named Georgina Orange Truth." I don't know, but you know, you
Very specific
identify
example.
completely differently. You can't have somebody else define you as who you feel that you are. Or internally, the only person who can identify you as you is you. So
Okay.
sorry.
No, it's all right. It's a good comment. Sorry, Yusha. Before I do have one comment. Well, I'm not completely sure if like it is completely true, even though I do agree with you. But sometimes we also tend to lie to ourselves, and we sometimes kind of like think that we are something when we actually are acting in a different way. And in that way, we do have other people who are able to spot it and kind of like point it out, and we are able to kind of like identify it. At least this is what I believe. But okay, go ahead, Jusha.
I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But today's topic is actually very, very fascinating because uh, if not to find ourselves, what is our existence? So how does one identify to oneself? Because there are things about myself that even I don't know yet, or at least until I figure them out. Because um, finding myself or finding a person's true self is not only difficult, but it's a battle in and of itself. Because here you have two dilemmas. One is your internal battle that, for example, you like dressing a certain way, and externally people tell you to dress otherwise. Like me, why I had to get a haircut, because of the place that I work at, they don't allow long hair. I work at a law firm and it's strictly professional environment. So internal versus external. And I think it's those kind of situations that really really help us identify ourselves, that whether you prefer something over the other, or you prefer something that you not have even imagined as compared to what you're used to on the daily. And one thing I would say about Kaya's point, that dystopia is definitely not seen, at least until you're going through it. Because in one of my favorite books, it was A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and it's an awesome read, because in it talks about so many philosophical aspects, and one of them is finding itself. And the specific scenario that I'm referring to is where the main character is not. So this dystopic universe makes humans like it mass produces cars or toys or anything. So basically, humans are being mass produced with the same genetics, same looks, same deficiencies. Everything is the same, and they're cut into tiers, like grade A, like we do with eggs: grade A eggs, B, C, and so far and so forth, so on and so forth. But my point being, it's a world where this human that was born naturally in a world where humans are being mass produced, he finds himself, but at a cost of committing suicide, because I'm not going to ruin it for anyone. I might have already, I don't know, but
Is that the ending of the book? Oh my god, that was brutal. Oh my God.
That's
that's
pretty
the
good.
cost he has to pay in order to find himself or his true self. So my question is it really worth uh, really like putting everything aside and trying to find who you as a person, as an individual are?
Well, you should just to kind of respond to that and go off of like what Kaya was saying. I think it's a balancing of both. I mean, it's like, yeah, ultimately, in a sense, you kind of do decide who you are as a person, but you know, how much of what you decide is your own choice, really. When
True.
a lot of what you like, a lot of what your culture is, a lot of these things are kind of determined by what you're surrounded by, who you're surrounded by, who you've learned your values from. And these are kind of things that are kind of not necessarily forced onto you, but rather are given to you. And so how much of that is you and how much of that is others? You know,
And
like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and I think it goes back to this idea of like ultimately you do kind of have a choice, but then really ask yourself, how do I define myself? You know, like what is it? My values? Is it my memories? Is it my likes, my wants, my desires? Like what exactly makes you you? You know, there's always this fun little philosophy situation that they put out there. Like, okay, what if they took your brain and they put it in somebody else's body? Are you still the same
Mhm.
person? And why? And I think that's what we're getting at here is like, what are we? Who are we?
True.
And I think it does involve others, and I think inevitably it involves others.
Yes,
True.
I do see that Efrain wants something to say.
Um, going on. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, yeah, there's a list. Never mind.
Oh, yeah, you're
Oh,
good, man.
Marcus is here. When did you arrive? So late to the
here.
party.
We didn't
Okay,
even see you.
everybody's shadowing today. Okay, I see
I
how
was
it
just
is.
gonna say, Orlando. You said talking about how it's involved with another person, right? The
What
process of finding
I'm
yourself or
saying is
something like
this:
that.
you're being so disrespectful and rude toward Efrain. So right now, it's unbelievable.
What?
Relax, bro.
I just want to say what's up.
It's okay. It's okay. Okay. So sorry, I
Okay,
interrupt. So
no,
rude.
y'all good. I kind of agree with like what Orlando says when he's like, in order to like understand who we are, it has to be like juxtaposed to like other people or people who aren't necessarily yourself. It's kind of like what Martin Heidegger talks about when he's like we're thrown into this world. Like when you don't get to really choose where you're born. You don't get to choose if you're like a Nepali villager or like or like the president's son or daughter or whatever of the United States. You have to accept what you're kind of given, and that defines you to an extent, but there is kind of a way in which you can let that define you, or you can accept that, or you can kind of have your own like authentic experience where like you find out who you really are besides just like the a negation of others, or like or like you're not just your society, you become more than just like what the social norms of your society are. You kind of like not necessarily transcend it, because it's not to say you can't adopt the social norms of your society, but rather it's something like you authentically come to conclusions about yourself that you're happy with, and it's not just about going with the flow and doing what others do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really well said, honestly.
Yes, but I do want to like add a little bit into it because I keep hearing that we do get into we get the sense of self because of others, which I do agree. Whew! Ow! I don't know who that person is, but be sensible. These things are like woofers. So like if you really want to hurt me, you just have to scream. Um, okay, so anyways, I lost my train of thought. The point is this: I do agree with you, but there is also this idea like uh, I also want to maybe bring the whole attention to the other direction. Okay, so it is true that a part of us is given, but sometimes once we are a little bit more aware of who we are, or at least who we want to be, we start like taking those things that were given to us, analyze them, and throwing them away in a sense. So, but like the thing that I see in this way is like by doing so, you start also doing the same thing that you were kind of like, you start giving something while throwing also that away. I think I'm being too abstract right now. So please tell me if it is making sense. No? Okay.
Well, I mean,
I
it
was
makes sense. It makes
It makes
sense.
uh,
sense. Yeah.
yes. Okay. Because like for example, something that did happen with me is this like the way I behave is different from my own culture. So it is very different because I did follow their path until one day I say I don't want to be that way. And I start working on to be different than that thing that I wanted to be like isolated from. And in doing so, like it creates in me like, yeah, I'm more comfortable who I am. But by doing so, I'm also like adding things to other people's selves that it may not be the best for them.
Yeah. And
Mm.
that makes, like, just to add on, sorry, Kaya. It's like you're right. It's like we kind of go through this evolution where essentially we become aware of the things that we like and the reasons we like them, and then that kind of in turn maybe will change us or maybe it will reinforce it. And so in doing so, you kind of start to wonder, like you kind of the way I see it or the way I've always seen it is that like you start to become more free, but not really, because the way I see it is that like once I've started to become more free, more conscious or aware of like my surroundings, I kind of start to look into I kind of start to see the box and say, wow, like how, like, am I really free? Or is this just an illusion, And that's more abstract, like how you were talking about. I'll stop there.
No,
But
no, I think it's not that abstract. I do agree, but okay, sorry, Kaya.
Okay.
But I do agree because like
Chastise Mark.
it creates like for some reason sometimes you feel like you're a third person, but you're not really a third person. Like you're just third person for yourself, but you keep being in the same box for others.
hmm,
So it is kind of like you give, but you try to like run away, but by running away, you are just expanding the box. You're not
exactly,
really
exactly.
separating yourself from the box.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, Kayas, there you go.
So when you said that you've pretty much changed completely from what your original culture is like, I challenge you to ask yourself, why did you do that? Did you do that for yourself genuinely, or was it because the situation you were in or the people you were around, it didn't mix well or enough? And, like, for example, if you're around a vegetarian in a house, you live in the same household as a vegetarian, you are, unbeknownst to you, slowly becoming a vegetarian because they don't keep meat around. And you start not eating meat all that much. And then you suddenly, just out of the blue, you're a vegetarian now. Okay. You think that you've done that on your own free will. It was your choice. But was it really your choice? Was it not your situation, or was it genuinely, oh, sorry, was it genuinely something that you wanted to do? And how can we identify that it was ourselves, that we, as our own consciousness, that we wanted to do it, and not just what we wanted in comparison to those around us or our situation?
No, I do agree. And it's a very well point. In my case, I just know that I wasn't happy. And the way people around me reacted, I felt it was wrong. I'm not completely like I can't even say that I did it to fit in a society because as I stand today, I don't really feel like like really mix well in that society. I just wanted to feel like like I'm following what I believe it should be right instead of what other people are telling me. So I really it kind of like first I guess it was a little bit too extremist, which I guess it is what you're saying. It's a little bit more circumstantial, but as long as I got a little bit more practice, it was more kind of like trying to define my own happiness and my own self like better. Because I already had like both side of the coins. Like, okay, yeah, maybe this thing is not. I'm not saying that I'm completely full of what I want to be. Maybe I'm not even full myself yet, but at the very least, I have a better idea of what things sits well with me personally, and I just try to be myself as much as I can without interfering in other people's creation of themselves.
And Kaya, just like a quick response too, sorry, is that, like with the question you asked, like why is it that he might have done that? I don't know if it's necessarily universal, but I think there's this innate feeling of like wanting individuality, of like wanting something for yourself, wanting something outside of like the paper cut culture that we're kind of brought up to. And I think with that, goes back to like the whole idea of the box. It's like when we try to escape from our own culture, what do? We just go into another culture, or rather, we just create another culture. So it's like, where does that lead us to? What are we trying to find? Are we trying to find our true selves, or like what exactly is that?
It's a good point. We maybe just trying to find that part of the box that is just like make us feel very comfortable. But go ahead, Efrain. And then Fortuna.
Okay, what I was just gonna say is like Orlando said that we have an inherent sense to want to be like individuals, or so is that right, Orlando? You said something like that.
Maybe I'm gonna say maybe. I'm not sure if it's true for everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not trying to attack you or nothing, but I kind of disagree with that statement in general. I feel like humans have a want to be around other people, or other people, not even necessarily other people, but just like the idea of wanting to be like a kind of like individualism as a general like trend in like philosophy, not even just philosophy, but like political thought in general. I think it's a relatively new thing, or relative in the sphere of like humankind or whatever, that want to be like individuals, because normally people wanted to be in their community, wanted to be in their tribe. It's somewhat biological, because if you're an individual, if you wanted to be like a hyper individualist back in the day, that would mean that you would starve. And now, because of the I guess you could say the material world that we kind of live in now, you are able to be an individual, just because we have so much economic specialization, things like that. It's just like a relatively new phenomenon. I don't think humans necessarily want to be individuals whatsoever. I think it's quite the opposite.
So just a quick response to Efren. I think you're absolutely right in saying that it was sort of evolutionary, that at one point we had to rely on others, and so it was kind of, we were dependent on others in that sense. But I think with like in the timeline, or in the time we are now in time and place, is that it has brought upon like a different sort of trait for us, where essentially it's sort of this urge. It's sort of like how consumerism was brought about, and sort of like this market system and different systems. Is like when you see something new, or you see something like that's different from what you have, you kind of might stray to it, or you might want it, or you might be curious. And so like now what I'm saying is that like, although we do like to belong to something, there seems to be something else that's enticing about finding it for yourself.
Yeah, and I would agree that, like, especially with among with kind of like the how prominent like American and kind of Western culture is in the world at large. Like a lot of people who come, especially now, like in the modern world, where you have very industrialized people like America, Japan, where you also very like kind of these remnants of like rural provincial communities left out in the world in several places, where they have enough technology to be able to see what the American life is like, or the Western life is like, and because of that, they want to like abandon their roots and traditions just to go to kind of like the American materialism or Western world materialism instead of their own like cultures and things like that. It's just like an interesting phenomena of having like people flock to like first world countries from like third world countries just because they see what the American way of life is, even though like America isn't even one of the happiest countries. There's other like having things that doesn't necessarily make you happy. That's kind of a different discussion, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would have to say that you actually own something here. Like you don't have a lot of money, but I think they just sell the idea of ownership. But okay, so I will respond later to I'm sorry, I'm not gonna try to pronounce your name wrong, but you did have a question to Orlando and I. We address it later, but let's have Fortuna have her chance to talk first. Go ahead, Fortuna.
Orlando, you can go ahead and speak. I wanted to collect my thoughts after what was just said. Sorry, not Orlando, Fernando.
Oh, well, okay, sure, both of us. That's fine. So I don't know if you're reading the question, but the question is, how can you build a strong sense of self even when other think differently? Well, in my case, I feel like you can do this, but in my case, happened this way. I just really, really wanted to be different. I don't know how, like, it seems, I guess, stupid, but I, I wasn't okay with how other people acted, and I wanted to be sure that I react in a different way. And whenever I go, I do my effort to do that as much as I can. It takes a lot of practice because, I mean, you do have to be determined, that you do have to believe that what you're doing is right. If you don't truly believe it, then you just let yourself go with the flow. So you have to have a strong sense of like, okay, this is what I want, and no matter like after that, your actions really will be, like will push you. Like you're not gonna like. Sometimes you're maybe like, oh no, maybe I'm doing things wrong. But if you truly believe in the process, if you truly believe that that next person that you want to be is worth all the challenge, all the hazard, all like the troubles, like you will go through it because it is your like, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's completely your decision, but at the very least, it's a decision that makes you feel like it's worth it of trying to go through that road.
Can I address it too real quick? Just
Yeah.
very, very. So I think also, I mean, in terms of that, it's just like you have to understand that in your life and other people's lives, there's different paths. There's different paths that were taken to get to maybe the same position, and so with those different paths, there's just different ideas and different ideologies. And I think with that, you have to understand, although I have my own beliefs, other people have their own beliefs, and regardless of that, you can still coexist. It doesn't mean like that things have to be, combatant. You can always coexist with others. Now, I think with that you have to learn to compromise. And you have to learn to get along if you want to coexist with them. And I think that depends on who you are as a person.
Yeah. And I guess that we also have to discuss a little bit of your definition of a strong sense of self. Um, because you mean like in awareness of your actions or just you not doing the things that other people want you to do? Because there are different ways of being strong. Um, so I do think that you have to be a little bit more specific in that regard.
I
But
kind
in
of
the mean,
interpreted it as like being yourself, even though others might not like accept that version of yourself. Like how can you even begin to develop it if you know that your community might reject it, for example? That's kind of how I interpreted the question. And it also poses another question, is like, how far are people willing to go to attain, who they want to be, however individualistic, knowing that it might come at a cost to, the current community that they live in. And also, I guess, to answer the question that was posed in the chat, it's knowing that there is probably a community out there for you that will fit your like identity, I guess, or your sense of self, right? I don't know if you guys ever seen on Snapchat or like those like articles about people who like want to become the new like Barbie doll, or they want to be an alien, and they get surgery on themselves, and there's always at least two of them. Like, you're gonna find a friend, you're gonna find your community. So yeah, as far as what was the exact question? Building a strong sense of self, even when others think differently. Just know that not everyone thinks differently.
okay, who's
At the very
who's
least,
trash
appreciate the
disposal? Hawa.
Weird. Hey guys, if we mute you, it's only because of background sounds. Okay. Let me look for this person.
I got it. I think I got
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that
So
better?
that's a
I
good point, though, Fortuna. I mean, I think you're exactly right. It's this idea of just shifting cultures to acceptance, and I think it depends like on how strongly you believe in those cultures to fight for them. And I'll
Yeah.
stop there. I'll stop there because I'm talking too much.
yeah. I guess we can talk longer, but Kaya. You have to tell me your name, how you pronounce it. I
My
don't
name
want
is my name is Kaya.
Oh, Kaya. My
It's
niece
okay though.
name. My niece name is Kaya, but she's written differently, so that's why I'm like doubting myself. She's
Yeah.
written like this, Kaya. Okay,
But
sorry.
you had mentioned Castro that you had a
Sorry,
strong need.
Ferdinando.
What?
I know my name is a little bit more complicated, but I would appreciate better if you just try to say my name, Ferdinando.
I think on her screen the last names are showing up the same way it's showing up on my screen.
So
It's
you prefer to go
Castro.
by Fernando?
No, Ferdinando.
Ferdinando?
Yes.
All right, I will do my best. So you had mentioned that you were trying to find individuality. Okay. So I think that comes from a form of psychology. So you, as pretty much I was studying at the beginning of my class for philosophy, we learned about the unexamined life, and it's about asking questions. And religion has tons of questions. Society, you ask questions. So I think what happened was You asked a question, you examined your life, and you didn't have an answer yet, so you became lost. You didn't identify, or you were, even if you did identify still with your community and your beliefs, you were still wondering. And when you become lost, often people search for something to latch onto, and individuality is something that people tend to go for when they're lost. If they don't identify with one religion or some aspect of things, they start searching for something that's them. They start going, okay, well, what am I now? What am I? So you try to either find another community, or you try to you end up asking more questions about yourself, and you think, well, okay, well, being me is great, but what am I? How am I an individual? And you start to kind of go down that path of trying to be just you. So when people will walk into a room and go, that's them, that's no one else, that's you. So I think that's exactly pretty much what happened with you. Is you asked a question, you examined your life, and you came out the other side with your own answer.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
And
I
I
like
mean,
that. Oh,
yes, okay. The
you go.
sense of individuality is even more of a necessity whenever you're a twin brother. But I would switch it to Orlando, and then you're next,
Okay.
right? You wanted to say something, that's why.
I like this whole concept. Well, like we've talked about it as well, like the unexamined life and examined life, and I think it's nice because I mean I think before you really go on this idea of searching for yourself, first you question, well, what is this world? You know, it's all going to come to an end. You know, oh, I'm not secure. I'm sort of floating out in space. Let me find something to sort of find gravity with. And it's like maybe we can't find this idea of true self, but rather just this secure idea of self where I feel secure, where I feel safe, and I feel like I am, I guess, myself. And so, you know, because I think for people who don't do that, who don't examine their life, they essentially just accept something that is given to them. And if that ever comes to crumble, if that ever falls from below them, they sort of fall into a panic and they like have like a midlife crisis. So they're like, you know, well, who am I? What am I? What is this world? Oh no. You know, it's like, and I think that's something, I don't know, interesting. But
Okay. So, hello, Jisha.
Um, I was gonna say that see here we're talking about individuality and finding yourself, right? But then we talk about leaving a box or society to be truly yourself and eventually finding something that you are yet another normality of. And I put that in air quotes because, as discussed in one of the previous meetings, there's no true concrete sense of normal. So that aside, how can one be truly individualistic or have the sense of it at least when deep down inside he or she may always want to belong? Like, we dress a certain way to look like certain people. We get our haircuts for the same exact reason, to be able to belong to something or to be able to identify with something or someone. How can we compare the two when they're completely different realms of their own?
Well, I think with the haircut, you're kind of talking about how we want to be perceived, right? Which is different than like identity itself. So like, say there's I don't know, say I want to get a mullet, right? Because I want to be perceived as like edgy and cool, and like that's like the new thing nowadays with the, you know, the young kids. That's not really part of my identity. My identity isn't having a mullet, but sorry, it's the idea of a mullet to me is really funny. But that in and of itself isn't really identity. It's just how we want to be perceived, which can be a really big part of our identity, but I don't think they're really the same, you know?
Hmm.
I mean,
I mean,
See, our identity is made up of two key aspects. They're not the only two. Don't get me wrong, but two key aspects, right? What we are on the inside and what we look on the outside.
So does that necessarily have to be
Okay.
the case though, Yusha? Is my question. I like what Fortuna had to say. Maybe we as people don't place our value of identity primarily on our looks. Maybe we can place it completely on the internal. And so if that is the case,
Yeah.
I don't mind if I'm perceived by someone else like this because I know that I'm really this.
I mean, that I guess it tackles a little bit of what I'm not gonna even try to mention his name. I was saying that if you have a strong sense of self, sometimes you don't even care how you look like. So it's
No,
kind of
that's
like,
true,
but some
but
people
again,
do. I'm sorry that I interrupted, but I do believe that some people, as you're mentioning, base their what they want to be perceived as a self, or they value primarily like shallow identity, and they put themselves a lot into
Yeah.
like work on this because that's their sense of self. Like they are just fashionista.
No, that's true. That's them being individualistic. For some people, it's like they're more of their ideology and what they think, and as compared to others who might go off of appearances per se. But it does come to a question that is a person's identity anything but what they were given? Because as mentioned earlier on, um, in the meeting, I'm sorry, I had to look at something. As mentioned on in earlier in the meeting today, we were born knowing nothing, practically, and then we have all these pillars surrounding us, including religion, culture, teachings, moralities, values. We ourselves are taught to be who we're supposed to be and not who we want to be. So does
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I think some counterexamples would be like racial identity, um, gender identity, and those are probably the only two that really come to the top of my mind as like identities that weren't really given to us to a certain extent. We were kind of born with them, right? Born to them into society. Saying like, I mean, obviously, racial is a social construct, and so is gender, but like, we were still born into a society where we didn't really get to pick, oh yeah, you know what, I'm gonna instill these ideas in you and I'm gonna make your racial identity a certain thing. That's just kind of how it was kind of prescribed to us before we were born, if that makes sense.
how we're programmed with it, basically. The other day, it's just a quick note. I'm gonna stop talking here for the next person. But the other day, I was watching a video and the host had mentioned that I know it's a very controversial topic when it comes to a gender identity and a person's own sexuality. I have no conflict with that. They can choose whatever they want again. But this person had said that everyone born is predetermined and expected to be straight. Why can being straight not be something that you come out? Like being gay, you come out of the closet and you're like, hey, this is what's going on, this is how it is. So they kind of flipped the roles, and it really got me thinking, in 21st century, with everything that we have in the past 2000 or more years, we're still stuck on the same aspects that were taught to us like thousands of years ago when we were still making fire with stones and sticks, because we're still given the old hardware, and where our hardware is programmed to stay in that time and not evolve according to technology and how fast the world is moving now. So
Yeah.
I guess that's where the biggest conflict comes in between the mind and the self feeling of being one.
Okay. I
That's
do want to add something else. I'm sorry, Orlando. Um,
Just-
I believe, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, because I did hear some arguments in that area that you were talking, Yusha, that the reason why I think people say that as a gay you cannot go out of the closet and not the vice versa kind of like thing is because it is perceived as like the majority is hetero. So like they're making like the bigger part of the room. So really like those who are gonna come out are like the minority portion. I think that's the whole argument about that
Yeah,
part.
That's exactly what I'm referring to. Is it might is right, or is it right is might?
Well, I also have a question
That's
here.
the
That, like,
comparison I'm trying to make.
I think you asked a very interesting question. Is like how much of ourselves is predetermined? Because you're right. I mean, like if you have two twins who are genetically identical in some sense, you would expect that if they grow up in the same household with almost the same wants and needs, they're going to come out to be almost the same person. But that's almost never the case. And so it seems as if like genetics or maybe something like that actually has a role to play, and that is something that is predetermined. So does genetics in some sense predetermine our entire personality, and how so? I think that's something interesting to ponder, but I'll stop talking because
It is funny how Luisa
we need to let the chat talk, y'all.
Yeah, Luisa start like not to go all dark and then like hate the girl. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna do like a little bit of introduction here. Let's give Mansi a try of speaking. I know he has his challenges here and there, but let's give him a try, okay? Don't
We
be
believe in you, Professor. You can do this.
don't be tough on him.
Is anybody gonna defend my honor? I always ask on my behalf.
I'll defend
Get
your
back to
honor.
the- Thank you. Thank you.
He's a bully.
Listen, yeah, I just wanted to throw something out there because, I don't want to derail the conversation. It's really, really fascinating. But I keep hearing this word self, true self, authentic self being thrown around. And just, for our consideration, do you believe that life experience can impact you to the point where it drastically changes you? And if you do believe that, then what is a true self? Is it something that's permanent and unchanging, or is your quote unquote true self itself flexible and malleable? And obviously other people are involved in those life-changing experiences. So can't you say that maybe other people do not determine, but at the very least influence your quote unquote true self?
Yeah, I mean,
When do you reach the point of true self?
That's the
I don't
question.
think you can. Like for me, you're never
Okay.
yourself in the same day, like all the time being the same person. No, sometimes like you're one way and then something happened and you're kind of upset and you react differently to the same things that you normally react to. I think you're never really completely the same person, even in the same hour.
Yeah, but that's not how other people see you. Other people see you. We are seen by other people as some things that are permanent. Like that's who he is. That's his sense of humor. That's his style.
I have a strong like opposition about that kind of statement. Like, oh, that's just who I am. Like, oh, you just feel lazy. You don't want to change that. Like, oh my god, don't be lazy. But I do know that Efrain wants to say something.
I was gonna go back to something that Fortuna and I think Yusef, was that what was the other guy's name? Yusef said. Sorry, I couldn't find your name. But anyways,
You're good,
y'all were
you're
talking about, or y'all kind of I think Fortuna brought up the idea of something like this is kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, but I guess we can bring it back up. Is how y'all claimed that like gender and like sexuality and race is kind of like a social construct or whatever. Made it sound like it was just like an obvious thing that's just taken for granted. However, I don't really think that we should just take that for granted necessarily, just because there is a lot of like science behind this stuff, especially with regards to race, that has been found out. Like for instance, like go watch the Olympics. You'll see that like West Africans dominate sprinting and like short distance running. East Africans dominate more long running, and then basically white men pretty much dominate Olympic swimming. And it has to do with like certain biological things. It's not to say one's worse or one's better. It's just different. You don't say a mouse is better than an elephant because it's smaller, more faster. It's just different. Nature doesn't create supremacy. It just creates diversity and difference. So I don't think it's fair to say that things like race is just a social construct, when basically this, like one of the most, for instance, in the field of psychology, which is suffering from a huge problem of none of their studies being able to be reproducible. The few studies that they are able to reproduce are studies with regards to race and things like that. So I think it's kind of, I just think that you can't just dismiss race as just like a social construct thing when it's a very important thing. It's both important and it's like very well founded in science, and it has been since like the early 1900s. People have been able to notice these things. If you just like look around the world, you see that race isn't a social construct. It's something you can see with your own eyes. And I think to an extent you have to kind of be like lying to yourself if you see that race is like just merely a social construct, is not important to identity, and that we should just dismiss it with regards to identity.
I think that's
Well,
fine.
no, I don't want that to come off as race is just a social construct, thus it doesn't matter. Like, speaking as a, African American and a Black woman, like, race has a very huge impact on my life. But just so to speak, first I want to have that distinction between race versus ethnicity, right? Or even nationality, which are three very different things. But race itself, being, Black or white or Asian, those in and of itself, those three categories are social constructs, but that doesn't deny its importance, right?
Well,
So
why
just because gender is a social construct as well, doesn't mean that we don't have, certain gender roles or differences between men and women. It doesn't really, necessarily negate its importance and its differences. It's just to say, for the most part, it's socially constructed.
Okay, but well, I'm just asking, like, what merit do you have to say that it's just socially constructed, though? Because like we can obviously tell from like studies about why different races act differently. And sure, there's some like fringes on the margins, but we can see it in a million different factors about how race manifests itself.
Right. How do we distinguish race? By the
No,
color.
I'm saying no. I'm saying, how do you claim that race is just a social construct? Is what I'm asking you.
I claim it because race in and of itself, which is just the difference of skin, that's a social construct, right? Like, who decided, oh, this is how we're going to, classify white people, and this is how we're going to classify Black people. That's what I mean by it's a social construct. I'm not saying that, I don't know.
So what you're just saying, that, what it sounds like you're saying is like we have different names for it, therefore it's a social construct. Well, just because you have like humans pick a name for something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Is what I'm saying.
I don't think she's trying to say that. I think that you're approaching the same question differently, though. Because what I'm thinking is, at least this is my understanding of what Fortuna is saying, is that let's say with the whole thing right now of the Black Lives Matters, like the police trying to associate the Black community as more propense to do crime than white people. So that, I think that that's what she's trying to see. It's like the perception of what somebody just based on the skin could do or react toward a specific situation without any proof of whether that person is going to actually do that or not.
Yeah, and the implications of race go past physical, which is kind of the examples you've been mentioning. But like past that, is that really relevant in society? Just like physical characteristics, slight differences. But maybe we're getting off topic here, and we should probably return to, philosophy. But I'm free to
I kind
talk
of
about
want
it
to say
anytime.
something to that. Just kind of say
Make sure
something.
we got to make sure we get everybody in the queue.
Alright.
Make sure we got to have everybody in the queue. We're running out of time.
Yeah, but Orlando, you wanted to say something very quick before going to Kaya again?
Sure, just real quick. I mean, just to kind of give some merit to that as a social construct, it's because if you're talking about like that as like in terms of like evolution and genetics, that's something that's kind of a selection. It's a sexual selection. So certain races or certain like ethnicities might be preconditioned because of experiences that they were placed into, but that's something that's malleable. That's something that's due to change, and that's due to change in a social setting.
Yeah, like stereotypically Black men are good at basketball, but that's because they've been conditioned to play basketball from a young age. I've seen in my own community. So that might explain the difference. You should read Malcolm Gladwell's one of his books. I'll write it down in the chat. And it kind of explains those differences in like race and gender and age. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now then, I guess puching. Go back to Kaya. Hello, Kaya.
Hello. Okay, so Professor Monzi, you mentioned true self, or what makes true self. Okay. And I believe that depending on what type of standpoint you take on it, whether you believe in God or not, depends on what answer you come to on that. So if you do believe in God, you understand the concept that you are an imperfect being, okay? Imperfection, we identify perfection as something constant and unchanging, okay? Something that everyone will view in one way continuously. No one will view it differently because it is perfect. But we identify that we, as humans, are imperfect. So we cannot identify perfect things. Okay? That's just how that works. At least through my understanding of it. So true self we can't have true self because it is changing. We are imperfect, so we must continue to change and be imperfect as we were designed to be. Now, if you follow the we're human beings, there's no God, and perfection exists in this world in certain ways. I don't know how, personally, because I've never seen anything that is, in fact, perfect. Sorry.
Sorry to whom?
Sorry, my voice is like cracking and it's awful. But if the idea of self is to having a true self from the perspective of a human being is impossible to define because we are human. We are changing, and there is always going to be one person who disagrees or doesn't see it the same way. There is no unification. There's diversity. Okay, so there's no unification of belief or how people see things because we're constantly changing. We constantly have been through different situations. So I don't think that we can identify true self because we're human and we don't know what perfection looks like because we're not perfect.
Okay,
So
let me
let me
just,
say something real quick.
okay, yeah, then I want to respond after you, Orlando.
So I don't think I kind of disagree with just one part, and that's the idea of like you have to believe in a God to essentially abide by that certain understanding. I don't think that's true.
No, you
exist-
don't. You don't.
Okay, because existentialism is like exactly that, where it's like this idea where essentially we understand that life can be absurd, and that we exist in this absurdity, and essentially we choose to be of a certain person, or rather find meaning in this absurdity. And I think that was just my only comment.
Oh, that was nice. Yeah, well, I guess I'll say this. I really appreciated how you broke it down there. Yeah, Kaya, I think you're onto something. This idea of, again, a diversity, it makes me think a diversity of selves. Because as you encounter different parts of your life, however you want to sort of break them down, perhaps you can say those are different chapters in my life. And so those are different me's. You put all those me's together and you have the I. But at the same time, I'm reminded of something Simone de Beauvoir said, who she wrote a book, Becoming a
The very interesting things. Yeah, I hear everything now. I'm just kidding. I couldn't. That last part you cut. Can you repeat, please?
Have I been on mute this entire meeting? No. Yeah. So what I was about to say is that it reminded me of something that a famous philosopher wrote, Simone de Beauvoir, in a book about approaching the end of your life and coming to terms with your memories, which is something that Ferdinando brought up earlier, but we kind of got away from. She said, the tragedy of somebody in your life who dies, especially somebody that's close to you. One of the parts of what makes it tragic is that the person that they knew you to be is gone. So you lose yourself when those who are closest to you, who've helped you comprise your journey of self, when you lose them, you kind of like a personal part of you dies. Part of your identity dies. So getting back to this idea of how you perceive other people, it's like not only are there different selves through the different parts of your life, but every person who meets you in one of the parts of your life, they have their own perception of who you are. So there's a whole lot of selves going around. And I just think it's interesting, going back to the original topic here, that, yeah, the self and others, I mean, I don't think you can have a self without others. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Why are you laughing at me, Fortuna?
Yeah, Fortuna's just being rude.
I went on a private chat with a friend. I was just laughing at something he said. Yeah.
So distractive during work, huh?
Is there anybody else?
Okay.
I've done that. It's fine. Okay. I think Jusha raised his hand, but I'm not completely sure if. I mean, it was a different system.
It was a little while back, but it tied into what Professor Manzi was saying and what Kayla was saying before him, that our self is, well, I think, and I have an example, perfect example for it. Our self is not truly the same throughout. For example, each person here holds a different opinion of me between themselves and between me and them. So my example being Charlie Chaplin, funniest guy in history, never said a word, made millions laugh, yada yada yada. Everyone knows him. But at the end, if we look at some of the quotes that he has, one of them being, "I was like walking in the rain, so no one can see me crying." Is that his true self, or is his true self making people laugh? And this is just one example. Another one is right here. Life could be so wonderful if people would leave me alone. And this is a people person who's on stage 24/7 making everyone laugh. So this is kind of the comparison that I'm trying to make, is not everyone sees us the same. Hence, our true self, is it even bigger? Because no two people see it the same way.
I like that.
Yeah, me too.
So it's sort of like art, you know, is that you have what the meaning was behind the art by the artist, and then what people perceive the art to be. So it's like you have yourself and what others see. And what is the true self? You know, some will say it's the person who is, you know, the person who decides it, but
yeah, no.
Okay, good stuff.
And then you can have,
All right.
oh, sorry. So something just popped into my head. You can have, like, for example, like authors who they mean something at one point and then something gets really popular and they change what their meaning was just to fit the situation. J.K. Rowling.
okay.
Oh, your voice is cutting again.
No, not only that, but even contracts. The way we make contracts, the stuff that I'm doing right now, why I'm not 100% focused on the meeting, is because that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm making a contract between a buyer and a lender, and I need to make it so even if the circumstances change, it flows with the circumstances instead of staying concrete and ending my client losing.
Interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not only in like big showboaty kind of thing. It's every day of our lives.
So it's a showboating kind of thing.
I mean, if you want to put it
I'm
that way,
playing.
because you can show yourself to be one thing in front of a certain group of people, and the moment you leave that group, you show yourself to be completely different in another group. For example, here with you guys, I'm open, I'm friendly, I'm making jokes back and forth, yada yada. But with a client, I need to hold a certain stature. So that's what I'm portraying myself to be. So it is a facade. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, good point.
All right. I mean, technically the time is up. We are always welcome to have more time. Sometimes we do extend too much. I don't know if that's.
We did 3 hours.
We have done 3 hours. Not that we're not gonna happen today. I'm not saying that, but don't be surprised if it ever happened. Okay, but normally the way we do is that we introduce a new topic. This is the fourth one, so technically our theme is of senses is up. It's like finito. So we need to come up with a different theme. Team as not team like let's go like Bobcats or whatever, like a team with like H in the middle.
Cats.
Yeah, like team. Yeah. So who wants to have like a say on what the theme is gonna be? I guess that's the next one, and we're gonna vote on it, and then we vote on a topic to discuss for next week.
Well, Orlando was wanting to get into metaphysical topics, right?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can have metaphysical there. It still is in elections, but this is open to the public to discuss. If you have something you really want to discuss, for example, I know that Kaya is on the agenda with Luisa and her classes, so she may have like the syllabus right there to propose something that.
Yeah,
There-
I'm not gonna do that. That doesn't sound fair to the other students.
I'm just saying, you may win. You never know.
Hey, go ahead. If
You can be just
suggestions-
selfish. You can be selfish for once, and
I'd
maybe
rather
it's
learn and-
collectively good.
It is better to be
I'll-
wrong
I'll
and
say
learn to
this.
be right.
Suggestions
Professor
are
Bennett, on the call.
It's pretty upset if people get paid. My professor,
I
man.
can't hear anything. I don't know what's going on.
The point is, okay, we have metaphysics, and you have 1 more minute to come up with a different theme. Otherwise, that will be the theme of the month. Just saying.
Oh gosh.
Just saying. And I'm gonna wait a little bit.
Yeah,
Nothing.
30 seconds.
All right,
Yes.
that's it. The time's
That's
up.
it.
Time's up.
Time's up.
Time's up.
Metaphysics.
That's the theme.
Now
The
let's.
fastest minute of my life.
It's over.
Yeah,
It's
seriously, hang on a second.
It's
it's
over.
over, guys. Let's not
It's
even.
over,
Let,
like-
let me talk over everyone. so
Why,
that
why are
it's
we
just
even
over.
discussing this? Like,
You know how they say when you're enjoying something, time flies by? That's,
yeah. Time
Exactly.
is relative. Time is relative. You were enjoying this conversation so much, like 2 minutes already.
Albert Einstein said that.
Okay, so do we have any suggestions?
Well, now Orlando, you were the one who created the whole theme. So, do you have a topic in mind?
So, I mean, I guess this isn't really metaphysical, but it can kind of be a transition. I'm thinking maybe memories, or like, and how they relate to us and how they affect us. You know, because over time memories can fade, and we can remember them differently than what they really were. So I think that'd be a pretty interesting topic to talk about.
I love that topic so much.
Okay, so we know she's voting for that one for the moment, and it's also kind of trend that Nancy comes with a topic and then we just dismiss that topic. It's
True.
just for competition
Yes.
purposes. The thing is that I do like memory topics. I don't think I want to like add something. I will abstain for this week. I want
Well,
to
I mean,
discuss
you wanna-
memories.
If you want to go if you want to stick to the theme of metaphysics, I mean, maybe we can make the theme time, and so one day it could be like memories, and the next day it could be sort of what is the future. I think that came up earlier today about what is tomorrow and stuff like that.
I like both of those ideas. These are all good topics.
It's a good idea to do it throughout the month. The time theme, and then break it into metaphysics and memories and time and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
We can make the
How are we
soul.
It's right now when the meeting's over. What?
Well, here, let's just pick a topic for next week so people can vote because they may have to go.
Okay, memories then. And what was the other one?
I don't think we had another one. I think
Yeah,
future. I mean, you could say future if you want, but
Future or the soul. You want to stick to metaphysics?
I mean,
Okay.
those are all. I like the soul. That was my topic one time, and it didn't get picked, and I was mad. But it's okay.
Spoiler alert, it won't be picked this next time.
That's
know,
kind of a tradition, actually. If it doesn't get picked, it won't get picked.
All right,
Yeah.
sure. All right, so we got 3 right there. I'm gonna put them in the chat. So
Yeah.
whichever nothingness, let's throw that in there. Why not? It might actually win. I like to talk about nothingness.
In what sense, though?
Don't worry about it, man. It's
That's the appealing of the topic.
okay. So we have the topics, and they're gonna be numbered. So the topic that you want, you can vote on it by typing the number in the chat. So
Can I
there
spam
are
it?
topics right there. So go ahead and vote, guys.
Technically
Can
you
I
can,
spam?
but your vote still will count as one.
So I'm gonna give you guys a time limit because last time it took too long.
2 minutes.
No, not 2 minutes. Maybe 2 minutes. Yeah, 4:40, 4:41.
Ooh.
It was. I can't even
Ooh.
see. The
Oh,
purple
Jesus.
chat box gets in my way.
Yeah, man. That, I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh Jesus,
Man,
people.
freaking!
They're
I
too
can't even
fast.
type my own topic.
Okay, I move around the thing. I can see now.
Someone don't spam it, please. Don't do that.
You're just pushing Jusha to do it even more.
I can't see. Like, I really don't know who's winning right now.
Okay, here's what's gonna happen. Once there are more than about 30 attendees, then I'm gonna start spamming.
Okay, that's good. But there's like number 1 already won. There's 8. There's 8 ones. Like it was a massacre.
Oof. Glad it was.
Violence.
by landslide.
Dang. We have a lot more people than I like was looking at. Wow.
It's
Yeah,
gonna
it's-
be
I think
so
yeah,
much
we-
fun discussing
we are a lot.
memories. I
Um,
play a lot of video games that like revolve around the philosophy of memories. So like I cannot wait.
okay.
Yeah, you sound excited.
Someone's
I'm so
excited.
excited that you're excited.
That's a
This is
good
the first
thing,
club I've
really.
ever been a part of, so like
There you go. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Welcome, welcome.
Welcome. Let's see. Ooh, two is not gonna win.
There's like 14
Wow.
left from what I can tell, and then Aklulu. I can't say your name. I'm sorry, Kalulu.
Oh, Kilulu is just trying
You're
very hard. to
spamming.
get
That's
the two.
cheating, man.
It's
It's not gonna
cheating.
work, bro.
It's not gonna work. It's still just one vote, and one is just winning. Like that's by default.
One
So, yeah.
one has won.
One
One
is
has
one.
won.
One
One
has.
has won.
One is one.
Okay.
One again.
Alrighty, guys. So next week's topic is going to be memories. Yeah.
Woohoo! Yeah, good stuff.
I'm
Awesome.
excited.
Okay, so remember, guys, this is like a weekly thing. So just come out around the same time and let's get those memories work on. Don't forget to sign in.
Yeah, let's make some memories.
I shall do
Whoa.
my best to be here.
Okay. If
Yeah,
not,
and tell your friends too if they no matter which campus they attend, they're more than welcome to join us.
Really?
Yeah.
yes. Like technically now we're Dallas College Philosophy Club, so we're technically the
I mean,
club
we are
for
the only club
all
of the
the
district. So
campuses.
Wow,
Oh.
Yusha. Thanks a lot.
It's gonna be fun.
Said we're the only club.
the underdogs, man.
The underdogs won by default, but we won.
By
right.
majority vote.
Thanks to everybody
Thank you
for
for
coming.
coming.
Like, wow, it's a large crowd actually.
Mm-hmm.
All right, until next week.
Bye, guys.
Next
See
week.
Bye,
ya.
everyone.
Bye. We're gonna kick you out eventually, so just leave. Bye.
Bye. Don't. It's
I-
not like
I
he's
stay long
rude.
enough.
It's just it's the way he is.
I'm gonna give you until 4:45 to kick you
That-
out. Bye.
That's just how Orlando is. He can't do anything about it.
So rude. So rude.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Bye.
Uh,
Manzi, come back.
he's there. He's
You-
there.
You're supposed to say here.
Bye. Thanks for coming. Well, thanks, Armando. Appreciate that.
So from 23,
No, Manzi, you're not leaving. Stay.
8, 7, 6.
I'm not going. I'm tapping the
Look at
chat.
that. I like it. Everybody listens, dude. That's awesome.
I don't.
Except this
Fortuna
person.
doesn't. Ferdinando doesn't.
There you go.
All right, we got
But,
Twan.
hey, we're back.
Say
We're back
it.
to where we were last week.
There you go. There we are. What's up,
Now let's get
guys?
the meeting started.
That was a good meeting. That was
That was a
honestly,
fun meeting,
I
yeah.
freaking felt
It was.
that meeting, y'all.
I wish
That's-
more people would participated.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes it is what it is. I remember that there was one meeting. It was literally just Orlando and I. Like literally, I'm not even kidding. But yeah, it is what it is.
Y'all
Was
are.
after we had 50 students.
I was gonna say you four are pros. Like it's. You know how to guide the conversation. You know how to just respond and keep it lively. I
Who?
just can show up. I'm on autopilot. It's pretty impressive. Like those topics that are really abstract. Like today's was an abstract topic, but you drew it out of people. You were saying things that got people to participate. It's a thing of beauty to watch. Just the team going at it. It's really great.
Who is that compliment for? I'm so confused.
For the
Every-
team, it's for
all of
all of us.
Thank you, Ferdinando, for defending me earlier as well.
For what?
Hey,
I'm
I tried to
defending it earlier
defend
with
you
a friend.
too. I tried.
Thank you, Orlando. He said something very interesting to me in our private chat. because I was like, I'm not about to have a, this is philosophy club, not debate club. We should probably. talk
Oh,
about
he.
it.
Oh, I understand. So,
That was a good-
okay. Oh, so you're telling me thank you for like helping you like sort that
Yeah.
out.
What
Yeah,
did
but
he
I
say though, Fortuna?
Yeah,
So,
what do you say?
should I just send screenshots?
I mean, sure. Like, well, the thing is this: I studied with him last semester, and I'm technically also studying with him this semester.
Hey, we
He's
gotta,
he-
we gotta cut the recording.
yes. Okay. Okay. So
That's
I'm going
already.
to do that.
Oh, I still go.
Dude, we're gonna have to go back and edit this